Hey guys, so in this video I want to talk about how to work with your blind spot. So in my last video on how the types are evil, I mentioned about how each type has a blind spot function which trips them up. So what is the blind spot? The blind spot is what makes you a little maladaptive in society. It's the one that makes you the quirky one, the awkward one in the room. However, to put it into perspective, every single type has a blind spot. So it's normal and it must actually be adaptive for society in order to have this function to exist in the first place. Why does it exist in the first place? Because there must be a reason for it. And this is what I think is the reason. Every single other type is expressing your blind spot better than you. They're stronger at it and they value it more than you. But you don't want too much of one viewpoint in society. So in order to have a balance, you need something to counterbalance. So you need someone who is a critic of the function, who has it as a blind spot. And so I think that's the reason why. So actually you're valuable to society by having this blind spot function because you act as its critic. Um, so how to identify, okay, one thing I want to say is that I see that people, when I observe the different types, I see that people tend to think that they're defective because of their blind spot. So for example, ISTJs, INTJs, their blind spot function is extrovert feeling. And they see how other people are expressing it and they're expressing it very well and they value it and they wonder why they are not doing this not well and they're not even valuing it. So they may think that they're defective. And I find this to be the same for all the types. I want to show you that you're not defective and there's a reason for why it exists. It's part of your wiring. So how do you identify the function? How do you identify it? So in the Myers-Briggs, you have your first four functions, the primary, secondary, tertiary, inferior, and you have your shadow functions. So your blind spot function is your seventh function in the Myers-Briggs. And it's opposite in attitude to your third function. So if you're ESTJ or ESFJ, your third function is NE, and so your blind spot function is NI, opposite in attitude, extrovert intuition, introvert intuition. So am I saying that you should develop all 8 functions? Because the blind spot function is very deep in the shadow here. So am I saying you have to go deep in the shadow and work with all your functions and expend a lot of energy juggling all these functions? What I'm saying is that I believe that the primary service you give to the world is through your first function. I'm not saying that you develop all 8 functions equally. However, every function plays a certain role in your psyche. So it's like you have 8 different people in your house, right? In your household, and you have to relate with all of them in a certain way. Some are brattier than others. Some are really annoying. But you have to work with all of them in order to make the whole household, keep the household from collapsing essentially. So, so there's a way to work with each of the functions. And what I find is that you can actually save energy by being able to work with your blind spot function, because I find that people expend a lot of energy being resistant to it. So your blind spot is the very annoying person in your household, and you expend a lot of energy being annoyed by this person. So we waste a lot of energy on resistance. So what I find is that people overreact to their blind spot function. They overreact to it. So for my type, INFP, and also INTPs, our blind spot is extrovert sensing. So when there's displays of aggression, we tend to overreact and we get sick and we fall ill. People get sick because of the expression of the blind spot from others. So in order to keep yourself healthy and vital, you want to keep yourself from overreacting. And in order to do that, you have to be able to understand the perspective of your blind spot function. So I've been treating myself as a guinea pig here. I've been working with all 8 of the functions myself to see what works and what does not work. And you get the benefits of my tests, my trials on myself. So what I find is that it's very difficult to concentrate on working on the actual cognitive function itself if it is very weak. So the cognitive function is a natural way, it's a way that the brain works, right? There's a specific way it functions in your brain. And your type has its own natural way of functioning. So it's very hard to go on a way of functioning that's opposed to your natural way of functioning. So I find there's actually a way to be able to work on that cognitive process itself, the weak one, which I won't explain here, because I find the easier way to do it is to be able to understand and validate the philosophy of your blind spot. So what I mean by that is, your blind spot has a certain kind of perspective. So it's a way that people function, but it also has a viewpoint. So my blind spot is extrovert sensing. So what is extrovert sensing? So I look at what it is and I list down its qualities. It's about strength, about power, aggression, struggle, competitive spirit, hierarchies, animalism, so assertiveness. So these are qualities that it has. So, my type tends to see these as kind of negative. However, what I do, I take the philosophy, so the viewpoint of the function, and I write down what is good about it. So what's good about extrovert sensing? Well, it's a demonstration of strength, right? That could lead to great leadership. It's trusting the impulses. It's your fighting spirit. It's your competitive spirit. It's willpower. It's your vital tonus, and standing up for yourself. It's assertion. So these are good qualities to have. And what I do is I embody those qualities not through that function, not through extrovert sensing, because that's a very weak function I have. So I express it through other ways. So I use my stronger functions to demonstrate to other people my own strength, my own fighting spirit, my own willpower, but through my way. So it's a way to communicate with others. These other people kind of expect that from you. They expect you to express that blind spot, but you are weak at it, so you express it in other ways, right, to demonstrate. And also by understanding and validating the philosophy of your blind spot, you respect its expression in others. So instead of making you feel you feel ill because of others' expression of it, you value it. You can understand that perspective because you understand what is good about it. Okay, so that is a great way. Another way is, sometimes you do have to express the function itself. And what you do is develop some strategies in order to develop it or get around it. So for me, that's extrovert sensing. So extrovert sensing is my PoLR function, is my blind spot function. So one thing is that I run meetup groups, I organize meetup groups, and I have to be able to have presence, right, in order to get people's attention. I have to be, as a leader, I have to have the presence in the room. So in this case, I need to express extrovert sensing. So what I do is a lot of INTPs and INFPs, since we have a weak PoLR extrovert sensing, people tend not to listen to us when we speak. When everyone's talking and we want to get people's attention, nobody hears us because our extrovert sensing is weak. So what I do is I raise my voice like this and I listen to how people react. So it's just playing around with things, just raising your voice. You may not find this natural at first, but when you do it, you become less inhibited, right? And you just raise your voice. You don't overdo it, and you see what gets people's attention, and people turn towards you, right? So when I'm running groups, I have to have presence because people get kind of flighty. So people get kind of flighty in groups and get distracted, and I have to inflate my presence and say, okay, here, look at me, I'm presenting right now, right? So, um, so it's just working on these kind of things like your body posture and your voice in order to work on your PoLR function. And you play around, you just increase its volume and just see how people react to it. And yeah, essentially that's the case. It's good for standing up for myself as well. And I find that, and I find that it works. And there's only like, what happens is that people tend to not use their blind spot function when it's most needed. Even when it's most needed, they still try to do things through their primary, secondary function. There's cases where you need to use it. So, and there's only certain cases in your life. And I need it for my meetup groups and, when I'm leading something, right? But other than that, I don't need to use it. So, INFPs tend to be kind of like invisible people, kind of quiet, and that's how I am most of the day. When I need it, I express this function, and I start to realize it becomes a natural part of me because I'm actually expressing what I want because I want people to pay attention because I want to present something. So it helps. It helps me. And another thing is you could develop a hobby that's related to your inferior function because Dario Nardi finds that each function has a certain kind of pattern that lights up in the brain, right? And if you develop certain skills, it can help your brain light up those kind of patterns. So for extrovert sensing, that is it's a tennis hop kind of pattern in the brain. So it lights up here and it lights up here, it lights up here, and it actually corresponds with how people express the function. So it's like a tennis hop. Extrovert sensing is you're getting ready for things physically. So there's a ball coming towards you and you're ready for it. You're ready for whatever comes your way. And it's for situations in life as well. So what I do is, I learn tennis. So I play tennis, and as a result, I can develop that part of the brain in myself. Or another good thing for extrovert sensing is martial arts. So you work on your natural reflexes. So that's what I have for you guys. Thanks.